Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nisa and my number study is 26121271. And now I want to explanation about the material, the speech organ, and manner of articulation, place of articulation, and voicing. So the table of content, the first is the speech organ, and the second is manner of articulation. The speech organ include three parts of the human body. The first is the lungs, the vocal folds, and the most important is the articulator, set from Harmer 2001. And now the function of each organ is the production of speech sound. The first is pharynx, which is a tap just above the larynx. Women and men have different pharynx lengths. And the second, the velum. The velum or the soft palate is at the back of your mouth. It always air to pass sometimes through the nose and sometimes through the mouth. The third, the hard palate in here. Can be found at the top of the mouth, which is why it's often called the roof of the mouth. The fourth is the alveolar, right is between the top front teeth and the hard palate. Its surface is round and is covered with little ribs. And the next is the tongue. It's very important in articulator. It can be moved into many different positions and different shapes. And the next is the teeth. The teeth are defined into two, the upper and lower teeth. They are called immediately behind lip. And the next is the lip are also defined into up and lower. Okay, the next uh, the position of the lip from Roach in 2009. The first position is round. When we pronounce certain vowels, our lips may be round, like you see in your image. Uh, the mouth make the shape O, but not and the position, the corner of the lip are brought toward each other and the lips are pushed forward. And the second position is spread. The lips can be spread in this position. The corner of the lips are moved away from each other. Like when we smile, the position of lip is spread. So the next, the position is neutral. The lips are said to be in natural position when the lips are not round or spread. In between round and spread position. So the next is know the different products of sound. The first, when we produce sound, the air goes out of the lungs, through the trachea, and then through the mouth or nose. The position of the vocal cords can be open or closed. The second, position of the velum. When the velum is circularly attached to the back of the throat, letting no air out through the nose, then the air will pass through the mouth of the oral cavity. In such a case of sound produced are called oral sounds. And the three, if the sound produced are not obstructed by any of the articulator and the air comes freely through the mouth, then the sound produced and the vowels. The second of table content of my explanation is manner of articulation, place of articulation, and voicing. The first is stop or the name is plosive. The manner of plosive sound is produced by the complicated stopping of the air stream and the abruptly letting it go. Air pressure from the lungs builds up and is suddenly released in sharp bursts of sound. Of all the sound we have learned, the sound P, B, T, D, K, and G are all produced by some form of stopping the air stream very briefly and abruptly letting it go. The second is fricative, the manner of articulation used in produce the set of sound, the v, and involves almost blocking the air stream and having the air push through the very narrow opening. as the air is pushed through a type of friction of produce, and the resulting sound are called fricative. If, for example, you put your palm in front of your mouth when produce fricative sound, you will feel the stream of air being pushed out. The usual pronunciation of the word of flesh begins and ends with the fricative f and v. So the next is affricative. The manner of articulation and affricative sound is produced by combining of a stop and affricative. Therefore, there is a brief stopping followed by an occlusion release, which results in some friction. There are two affricate sounds in English. The sound is j and j. For example, this word is the jam and joy. So the next is Nasa. The manner of articulation of nasal sound is produced by lowering the volume and allowing the air stream to flow out through the nose to produce nasal sounds. Most sounds are produced in the oral cavity or mouth, with the volume raised, preventing the airflow from entering the nasal cavity. However, sound may also be produced in the nasal cavity or nose. The volume is lowered and the air stream is allowed to flow out through the nose, with the resulting sound described as nasal. The sound R is am, and earn. The word man, the word is from the man knocking, knocking, and name begin and with nasal. So the next is liquids. Liquids are formed by letting the air stream flow around the side of the tongue as the tip of the tongue makes contact with the middle of the alveolar ridge. The initial sound is lam and run are described as liquids. In this sense, I and are categories in their sound. And I sound is produced by touching the lip of the tongue to the alveolar ridge and allowing air to escape over each side of the tongue. The R sound is formed by curling the tip of the tongue up behind the alveolar ridge and flipping forward and backward without actually touching alveolar ridge. So the next is glide. The sounds Y, W, and G are described as glides. They occur at the beginning of breath, while yang and yes, the sound are produced with the tongue in motion or gliding to from the position of a vowel, and they are sometimes called semi-vowels. In some uppercase, the liquids I and R and slides Y and G are combined into one category called approximates. So the last is glottal stop. The glottal stop represented by the symbol, like you can see, occurs when the space between the vocals, the glottis, is closed completely very briefly and then released. When we say oh between the first oh and the second oh, we typically produce a glottal stop. You can also produce a glottal stop if you try to say the words butter or battle without pronouncing the C part in the middle. So the next is place or articulation. Consonant sounds are categories based on place of articulation, manner of articulation, and phrasing. To describe the place of articulation of most consonant sounds, we can start at the front of the mouth and work back. Below are the 7 places of articulation. Based on the other from the front part of the mouth. The first is bilabials. The bilabials or bilabial sound are produced by pressing the upper and the lower lips together. The sound are P, B, R, and W. As in the initial sound of the word put, bag, mother, and woman. So the next is labiodentals. Labiodentals are produced by pressing the upper teeth and the lower lip together. The sound produced are f, f, and f, and as is the initial sound of the word photo and fairy. So the next is dentals. Dental as produced placing the tongue tip behind the upper front teeth. The sound corresponding to this are, like you can see, which can be found in the initial sound of the words tick and day. So the next is alveolar. An alveolar sound is produced by putting the front of the tongue on the alveolar ridge. The sound produced are T, D, Ch, G, and I, S, and Z. These sounds are found the initial sound. The word is time, die, champ, judge, no, now, lamb, say, and Z. So the next is palatal. If you feel the roof of your mouth just behind the alveolar ridge, it feels hard. This is called the hard palate or the palate. Sound produced with the tongue and the palate are called palatals. The sounds are v, j, j, and z. Example, the initial sound, the words chef and chips. The sound received by the symbols is not very common in English, but it can be found as the middle sound in the words like teacher or and pleasure. The palatal j can be found in the initial sound in words like jam and gym, even though they have a different spelling of G and G. One other voice palatal is the I sound used at the beginning of word like you add yet. So the next is velars. The production of velar sound is made by placing the back of the tongue against the velum. So the velar sound are represented by the symbol K, G, and N. The sound K occurs in the initial sound of kind and car. The sound G appears in the initial sound of get and give. The last velar represents by the symbol N and normally spelled as the two letters N. This sound is only found in the middle or final position in the words such sing and lang tang. So the last is glotta. This sound is produced without any movement of tongue or other parts of the mouth. So this sound is produced in the glottis, which is the space between the vocal cords and the larynx. It is the sound which occurs at the beginning of have and house. So the next is voice and voices sound. The first is voiced sound. When the vocal cords are drawn together, they touch each other or nearly touch. So the voiceless sounds is when the vocal cords are spread apart, they do not vibrate. So the next is manner of articulation of English consonant sound. Having described the detail of voicing, the place, and the manner of articulation of English consonant sounds, we can summarize the basic information in, as you can see in this table, the table of English consonant sounds. Along the top, the card are different labels for place articulation, and under it, one are the table of unvoiced, label voiceless and voice. Also included in the table on the left hand side in the set of terms used to describe the manner of articulation. So that's all of material from the speech organ and manner of articulation. Thank you for your attention, my explanation. Sorry for my mistake. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.